What is this image? Oh my god, it's the same image right there. This is the second Shapiro video I wanted to watch. He's done it again. His sponsorship got longer. Episode 3 of The Last of Us, the show, I haven't seen it. I have not watched a single second of that show. This is probably going to have spoilers in it. If you want to avoid spoilers for The Last of Us, maybe avoid watching this. Look at that like to dislike ratio. 78.5%. This could be the best Ben Shapiro take of all time.
So, we are going to steer into some dicey waters here. I'm about to criticize an episode of the TV show, The Last of Us. So, I'm going to say right up front, HBO's The Last of Us, right? This is the one that stars Pedro Pascal. And it's really well produced, written by Craig Mazin, who's a super talented guy. He's the one who is behind Chernobyl. Okay, so first the things about this series that are good. And again, preface, I've never played the game. So don't care about the game. Don't care about how true it is to the game. There are lots of gamers out there. You want to watch their videos on the correlation between the game and the show. That's fine. I'm just watching it as a piece of pure TV entertainment. Okay, I'm coming from, I don't care what's canon. I don't care what's not canon. Just coming at it from the view of a TV viewer. So I'm just going to say that right up front. That is not my particular purview. I don't play video games because I'm not a child. I know. I'm just joking. Lots.
Oh, man. I don't play video games. I'm not a child. I reckon Ben Shapiro would be so much happier if he actually played a video game. He just picked up a video game, played it. Someone give him a DS or something. Ben insulting a large portion of his viewer base. The majority of his viewer base.
I know. I'm just joking. Lots of good people play video games. Okay, in any case. Including Andrew Clavin, who's a mediocre person. Anyway, The Last of Us is for those who haven't seen it, it is a zombie show. Okay, it's a show about a zombie apocalypse that essentially arises because fungi go viral, essentially, and take over people's brains and turn them into zombies. That is the premise of the show. And it's really well produced, and it's beautifully shot, and it's really well scripted.
Okay, cool. Apparently that's actually happening right now because of climate change. There are certain kinds of fungi that are currently adapting to the higher temperatures, and because of that, they are slowly becoming Okay, I'll start by explaining the fact that fungi, like infections, a lot of them can't spread to humans because our internal body heat, like body temperatures, are too high. It's like, I don't know, 37 degrees. So the fungi can't actually survive in our bodies, which is why a lot of these kind of viral fungus infections that you see sometimes in animals can't pass to us. However, climate change, and I know there's going to be quite a few people that are saying, climate change, what the hell is that? That's not real. Climate change is allowing certain fungi to adapt to higher temperatures. And because of that, they could soon be able to infect humans. As of right now, it is just a theory. There aren't actually any fungi that can do that weren't able to before. Obviously, there are certain fungal infections that already exist, but there are some fungi that could potentially in the future be able to infect the human body. So that's interesting. Interesting fact. Quite a scary one.
And all the rest. So the first two episodes are about Pedro Pascal finding, again, some of this is sort of hackneyed trope, but he is introduced to the other main character who is a young girl. The young girl is, for some reason, immune to the zombie virus. And so the question is, can he get her to a place where presumably they are going to try to manufacture a cure from her? Right? That's where the show is going, I would assume, because any other place doesn't make any sense. So it is this character, Joel, and this character, Ellie, and they are navigating the zombie apocalypse. And then we get to, so that's the first couple episodes. And they're good. They're really compelling. Again, really well made, really well written. And then we get to episode 3. And this, according to the media, is the single greatest episode of television that has ever been. If you read the headlines on episode 3, this is the most important thing that has ever happened in the history of television. CNN, The Last of Us just made an early claim to one of the best TV episodes of 2023.
Okay, so that's not saying what Ben Shapiro just said. That's saying one of the best in 2023. If Ben Shapiro isn't aware, 2023 has only been around for about a month. So they're basically saying the best of this month. One of the best. Not even the best. One of the best of this month.
The Last of Us viewership soars 12% to a new series high with heartbreaking episode 3.
Okay, so that, once again, is not saying the same thing that Ben Shapiro said. That's just saying that the viewership has gone up for episode 3. For some reason, more people watched episode 3 than watched episode 1 or 2. That's not saying that it's like one of the most important moments in TV history. Let's keep going. Let's see if he finds one that actually says that.
It's historic. It's important. Okay, guys, it's historic and important. Now, why is it historic and important? It's historic and important because it's about...
Okay, so he didn't so he didn't find any titles that actually backed up what he was saying. Oh man, this is why I love Ben Shapiro. This right here is why I love Ben Shapiro. It's so funny.
About 2 gay dudes. That's why. So the essential plot of this episode, which is the problem with this episode, and again, you want to make Brokeback Zombie Farm or whatever, fine. But the problem with this episode is that it absolutely does not advance the plot in any way and actually has no consequences. So the entire plot of the episode is...
Okay. I haven't seen the show. Okay? I haven't personally seen it yet. But suggesting that an episode of a TV show is bad because it doesn't advance the plot is kind of weird. But it's kind of weird to say that a show, like an episode of a show, isn't good because it doesn't advance the plot. Because it can improve upon an already existing character. It can introduce new characters. It can introduce traits of a character that we haven't seen in a previous episode. Flesh out a character's character, if that makes sense, without advancing the plot.
The entire plot of the episode is that Ron Swanson, Nick Offerman, but he actually plays Ron Swanson, but Ron Swanson who likes to nail dudes. So Ron Swanson, a libertarian who hates the government and lives in his basement and is a prepper, but also is gay. Ron Swanson, during the zombie apocalypse, he's having himself a grand old time. For some reason, his town is completely not hit by any of the zombies at all. It's like completely left alone. And so he goes out and he gets all of his resources, and then he builds a nice fence around his place, and he sets up all of these booby traps. So if anybody shows up, whether they're raiders, whether they're zombies, they're going to get killed. And then somehow another dude ends up like falling into one of his traps, and they meet and they bang, and they end up becoming a couple.
That's a funny way to describe it. There just so happens to be a relationship between 2 men. We don't like that here on the Ben Shapiro channel. We hate gay people. Gay people, ew. Am I right, guys?
And they bang.
They meet and they bang. And I don't like that. That's disgusting. And it doesn't further the plot. So basically, what I've been told here already is that it introduces a new character. The show introduces a new character, which absolutely, to a certain extent, does advance a plot. It might be a subplot, but, you know, that doesn't make it not a plot.
And they meet, and they bang. And they end up becoming a couple. Okay, so, you can see it here, right? There's gay Ron Swanson. And it's complete with like sex scenes and the whole thing. And
I think his editor forgot that
the
bit.
entire episode has no zombies, no real threat, and it is about 2 gay dudes who meet and have a relationship in which one grows strawberries for the other, and then they die, but not being killed by zombies or under threat. One dies, he gets cancer, and he decides to essentially euthanasia himself, and gay Ron Swanson decides that he is also going to commit suicide at the same time because Romeo and Juliet, or Romeo and Romeo in this particular case. We'll get to more on that in just...
Okay, so far, in my opinion, I haven't heard anything bad. I don't know. Just my opinion. I haven't heard anything bad. Sorry for the spoilers, by the way, if you haven't seen that episode yet. I didn't know he was just gonna completely ruin the ending. It's an episode, it's probably the first episode that I can think of any show that focuses on the relationship between two men. Does it fit the show? I don't know, because I haven't seen it. Maybe. Okay, actually, I want to see who we got sponsored by today.
1 second. First, speaking of rough financial situations, a lot of people have had to take out credit cards because obviously the bills are racking up. The problem is if you let those credit card bills sit, then you get those high interest rates. The high interest rates will just break you. You get behind the 8 ball on a credit card bill and you're done. This is why you need Lightstream. Americans' total credit card balance was 9.
Oh, that is so funny. That is so funny. Ben Shapiro says, capitalism exists. That's why you should pay someone else money as well, to not fear the the consequences of capitalism. I just think that's really funny, because Ben Shapiro will claim that like capitalism is the way to go and that socialism is evil and all this, but then he also says, yeah, people who don't have money, they have credit cards, but if you get behind on your credit card bill, they'll start charging interest. It's like, yes, that's capitalism. It's like, yeah, you were saying?
As Americans, we need to take control of your credit card debt. The best way to do that is Lightstream.
No, the best way to do that is not capitalism. If you're in 100,000 of credit card debt, you have much bigger problems than interest rates. Yeah.
Here's the problem. It's all really well produced and it's beautifully shot. Brokeback Zombie Farm. Here's the problem with Brokeback Zombie Farm. 1, it's a zombie show. There are no zombies in this entire episode. Like none. I understand simplistic critique, but there are no zombies in a zombie show. This is worth pointing out. It literally has nothing to do with the plot of the show. This is a show where this show could have this entire episode could have taken place completely.
Okay. Let me make a bit of a different point. I'm coming up with like a counterpoint to this. If you had a show, for example, Avatar: The Last Airbender, in my opinion, one of the best shows ever written. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it. It is amazing. But there are episodes in that show that don't feature, for example, the Fire Nation. The main enemy, the main threat in the show is the Fire Nation. And there's episodes that don't have the Fire Nation in it. Does that make them bad episodes? Absolutely not. It's the same. Like, it's a show about zombies. It's not really. It's a show about the two main characters. So if you're going to argue that point, you could say, oh, well, the two main characters aren't in it, so, that makes it a bad show. But I'm sure I'm not 100% certain because I haven't seen it, but there's probably a scene or two of them. It's a bit weird to say it's a bad episode because there's no zombies in it. Because, it's a zombie show. It's a zombie show. If you even listen to the name of the show, The Last of Us, it's about the people. It's about the people, the last of us. The people, the last of the people who have survived this thing. That's what the show is about. Not the zombies.
It literally has nothing to do with the plot of the show. This is a show where this show could have this entire episode could have taken place completely without a zombie apocalypse. It just would have been a Showtime romance between two middle-aged...
Except the entire plot of the episode wouldn't have happened if one of the guys didn't fall into the trap set for zombies by the other guy. So it couldn't have existed in a different show, for example, because the entire point, the entire plot wouldn't have happened. Just putting that out there. The only reason he's complaining is because they're gay. Exactly, yeah. He's just finding things to complain about because there's two, gay characters. It's like, oh my god, no. We can't be having that.
Aged gay dudes who get older, one dies of cancer and the other assisted suicides himself. That would have been the entire... It would not have changed one iota of the show. It is completely irrelevant to the story. And one of the reasons that it is completely irrelevant to the story is because there are no stakes. And the reason that there are no stakes is because, again, we are in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. When you're in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, one of two issues has to come into play. 1, the threat of the zombies. Or 2, the threat to humanity more broadly. So, if you're talking about the threat to...
What?
One of two issues has to come into play. One, the threat of the zombies. Or two, the threat to humanity more broadly.
I feel like the left was the right. It's so stupid because both sides can make really great leaders. So if they were just smart. Just, you know what? Get rid of the president. Have a government body that, based on democracy, we can vote on the decisions that they want to make. They say, like, if they, as a council, decide, yeah, well, we want to introduce a bill that, we want to introduce a bill that makes all water free, including bottled water. And then, we as people get to vote on that.
The threat to humanity...
Oh yeah, I didn't even talk about this. The thing that I was going to say, Ben Shapiro is talking about how in a zombie apocalypse, there's only two things you need to worry about, right? Two things. And those two things are zombies and a threat to humanity as a whole.
One, the threat of the zombies. Or two, the threat to humanity more broadly.
Okay. So, they are not the only two things. Because in a show where there are characters that you can be invested in, what you are worried about is the characters. You're not worried about, like, zombies in general or humanity in general. You're worried about the characters that you're invested in. Like, if I was seeing this scene right here that he's playing right now, he's playing the scene. I've gone too far back. Hold on. Wait, have I? I've gone too far forward. I don't know where I am.
When you're in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, one of two issues has to come into play. One, the threat of the zombies.
So he's...
Or two...
He's shooting a group of people. He's shooting at a group of people who are also shooting at him. The thing that I'm thinking about during that scene is not the zombies or a threat to humanity more broadly. What I'm worried about is the characters that are being shot at. The thing that I'm worried about is not the two things that he mentioned. Like, I'm not in this world. I'm looking at the world through the eyes of the characters that are currently there. Like, you can create a very thrilling story like this one, where it's a world with zombies in it, but then you can have a self-contained story inside that doesn't need to be about the zombies and still have it be a good story. It's just a bit weird that he's focusing on the fact that there's no zombies in the episode. It's not what the episode was about.
So, if you're talking about the threat to humanity more broadly during the zombie apocalypse, what you're talking about is underpopulation, right? You're talking about there are no people. The zombies are going to take over. Humanity is going to be...
Oh, I see where he's going with this. Oh, but gay people can't reproduce, guys. We're worried about the population. And the gay people, well, they can't reproduce. I feel like that's where we're going with this.
Extinct. That is the entire threat in a zombie apocalypse. Correct?
No, but...
Or in an alien invasion movie. Or in any other sort of species level...
Man is like, there's no conflict when a man is literally bleeding from getting shot. Yeah.
Extinction event movie, like War of the Worlds or something. The question is, how do human beings repopulate? How do they survive? And how do they become successful once again? If you're going to censor an episode like that, what you need to do is you need to have an episode about people who can have babies.
Oh, there you go. There it is. Uh-huh. There it is. That's the take. That's his take right there. He thinks the show is about the entirety of humanity, not the journey the characters take. Exactly! My whole point, right, about this is that Ben Shapiro is focusing on what would happen if we as humanity were in this situation. I mean, obviously, yes, in the long run, it would be quite desirable to have both men and women survive so that humanity can survive as a whole. But that's not what the show is about. In episode 3. We're in episode 3. We're 3 episodes in. There's nothing about pacing? Yeah. I mean, obviously, yes, the desirable outcome is to have a population that can repopulate after the events of this world-ending disaster, but we're in episode 3. It's a self-contained story about a single relationship. This isn't every relationship that's happening in the world. And a relationship does not, like, a story about a relationship does not have to end with a baby for it to be a compelling story. Gay dudes in the apocalypse be like, damn, guess we're having kids now. Hello, straightness. The other thing as well is, like, they are aware that, like, sperm donations exist, right? Specifically, Ben Shapiro. Is he aware?
Welcome, honored guest.
Cars 2, the movie. Gay people can still donate sperm, and then, I don't know, straight women or lesbian women or anything other, women, they can have a child with said sperm without ever engaging in sexual activity. Like, ever. So, like, it's not all about, like, relationships. Ben is not aware of the functions of the human reproduction system. Women don't get wet. Yeah, if you're a woman and you get wet, that's, sorry to break it to you, that's a medical condition. You should go see a doctor. What we're talking about here is actually a medical condition. Wet-ass P-word? Yeah, that's a medical condition. Let's go back again. I want to hear this take.
For an episode like that, what you need to do is you need to have an episode about people who can have babies.
You don't, but...
Again, there are only 2 issues in a zombie apocalypse. You could have this whole thing, but the whole thing is these 2 dudes in love, but they're fighting off zombies. But they never fight off the zombies. It's not an issue. So, irrelevant.
Well, yeah, you can have that, but does that advance the plot? No. Not at all. So that doesn't help his point. If they were fighting off zombies, it would just be another plot point within that self-contained plot. They fight off people. Exactly. Like, it doesn't have to... Oh, man. Oh, my God.
Or you could have them somehow interact with the main characters. They never do.
Or you could have them interact with the main characters. You don't, though. Like, what's stopping them from being main characters? What makes a main character a main character? Generally speaking, in a book, right, the main character is the person that you're seeing everything from their perspective. That's who the main character is. So, if I start seeing something from the perspective of a character for, like, more than 10 minutes on screen, I'm going to assume that they are also a main character. You know what I'm saying? And there's a whole episode. Right? So, they're main characters. Specifically for that episode, they are the main characters. And I haven't even watched this show.
They interact with the main characters for like 30 seconds. They are both dead by the time the main characters arrive to pick up guns. So this entire episode is a sidestep. It has nothing to do with anything.
What? Please, just listen to this.
Or you could have them somehow interact with the main characters. They never do. They interact with the main characters for like 30 seconds.
Huh? They could interact with the main characters, but they never do. They interact with the main characters for like 30 seconds. It's right there. He just said the thing. They don't interact with the main characters, but they do actually. So what's the problem?
They are both dead by the time the main characters arrive.
Doesn't matter. Occasionally it's nice to know, like, the backstory behind the characters that are dead on the floor. Sometimes it's nice because, like, it's funny. But the thing is, like,
Welcome,
hey,
honored guest.
Let's go. Follower goal met. Yeah, I'll have to set a new one now. I forgot how to set those. Sometimes it's nice to know the backstory of a character who is dead when the main characters come across them, because it's fun to see the difference between your reaction to seeing them dead on the screen. Your reaction is, oh, that's so sad. Oh, we knew those characters. We knew those people. But the main characters are just seeing them as another couple of bodies on the floor, you know? It's fun. It's exciting to see the difference. You know what I mean? I don't think Ben Shapiro understands that. I don't think he gets it. But it is exciting. It is an interesting thing to have happen in a TV show. It's like, have you ever watched a movie where the first 10 minutes or so, there's a character that is introduced as the main character to you. You watch the first 10 minutes and that character gets killed off. And then the rest of the movie is from someone else's perspective. And that character that is the new main character comes across that person and has absolutely no idea who they are. But you're thinking, oh, that's the person that we, that's that character that we saw at the start. But the main character doesn't know that, It's fun. It's exciting. It's something interesting that happens. I'm suffering through this.
They interact with the main characters for 30 seconds. They are both dead by the time the main characters arrive to pick up guns. So this entire episode is a sidestep. It has nothing to do with anything. Ellie and Joel could have just stopped by, found the house, picked up guns, and gone on their merry way, and it would have taken 10 seconds. Instead, you get an entire hour-long digression to do, as I say again, La Caja Falls, or whatever this is. Okay, so it's irrelevant. Beyond it being irrelevant, it has no stakes. So you want to have an interesting conversation about love during the apocalypse? The big issue of love during the apocalypse is, what if you have a baby? What happens if you have a baby? Or should having babies be the purpose here? So let's take another example of a show that did this correctly. So Battlestar Galactica.
Oh my God. So he's saying that, I'm trying to dissect what he's saying, but it's so dumb. It's it can basically not be dissected. He's basically said that if you have a show about an apocalypse, one of the plot points either has to be that you have a baby or that you want to have a baby. That has to be a plot point at some point in the show. He doesn't even know because he hasn't played the games, right? This is episode 3, by the way. Episode 3, we're 3 hours into the show. He's saying that a plot point of the entire show has to be, or I'm not going to say has to be because I don't fully know what his point is, but it's a good plot point to have. The baby plot point would be another interesting point, but there's no reason to get angry because it's not there. Exactly. Yeah. It's just an additional idea that can be put in, but it doesn't have to be. In fact, if they did do it in this show, it would serve absolutely no value. It would add no narrative value to the show because these characters die anyway. So if these two characters, let's say a man and a woman, and they had a child and then they died, well, how does that advance the plot? Except now there's a starving baby out there somewhere. I mean, at least in certain shows or movies, I think a good example would be A Quiet Place. The mother has to give birth to a baby, and then they have to I think they have to actually try and keep the baby quiet at one point. But that serves a good it's good narrative. It's good for that movie because the whole entire point of the movie is that they have to stay quiet, right? The point of the movie is that they have to stay as quiet as possible. So the problem is, when we get to that point, there's actually a problem. If she's giving birth, it's very, very, very difficult to stay quiet during childbirth. The second problem is the baby's probably going to start crying straight away. That's another problem that you have to deal with. Another problem, babies are incredibly loud sometimes. And a lot of the time, they can't help themselves because, they're babies. That is a very, very interesting plot point in a movie where you have to be quiet. You know what I mean? It adds something. Whereas if a couple in a show like this one, where they were in a relationship, they had a child, does that advance the plot? Not really. Not that much. There's no... Like, the only thing that adds to the plot is the fact that they also need food. You know? But it's certainly not as compelling to me as a relationship that is actually fully fleshed out. You know? Babies are annoying. If I saw another apocalypse show where someone had a baby, I swear to God, I would be so bored. There's so many. It's a really overused trope. It just makes me think, oh, well, they did that because they couldn't come up with a different idea. They couldn't come up with anything else. So they just decided, you know what, we'll go with the classics. Add a baby in. And while you're at it, make sure you add in the army. Because that has to be in every zombie movie and every zombie show. We need propaganda for the army. We need to show that the army is the best. For all we know, they could have a baby in a later episode anyway. That's what I was saying as well. Is like, we're on episode 3. Ben Shapiro hasn't watched any further than that. He's only watched to the end of episode 3. So he doesn't know that, like, there could very easily be another episode later on where a baby is introduced. It's quite possible. He's just complaining because episode 3 doesn't have a baby in it. I'd much rather have the end of the show have a baby. I see a baby in an apocalypse movie where Mank just throws it at the zombies. We've been trained too much to care about the babies in movies. Usually not a great idea to criticize something before seeing the whole thing. Exactly. That's why I didn't like the fact that there was videos criticizing She-Hulk, like when the first episode came out.
What happens if you have a baby? Or should having babies be the purpose here? So let's take another example of a show that did this correctly. So Battlestar Galactica had an episode early on, I think it was season 2, in which...
Early on? Season 2, huh? That's early on? Early on? We're 3 episodes in! 3 episodes into the first series, the first season of the show. 3 episodes in. And season 2 is early on? You're telling me that show, they didn't have a baby in episode 3? There was no baby in episode 3 of season 1? Bad show. Bad show. That's not good. That's a bad show. Early on.
Galactica had an episode early on, I think it was season 2, in which one of the questions was underpopulation, right? The fleet is depopulating. And so the question becomes, what do you do about abortion?
Wait. I wasn't expecting that. Oh, there's no way he's gonna make an abortion point here. Anyway, I wanna see what this point is.
Had an episode early on, I think it was season 2, in which one of the questions was underpopulation, right?
Okay, so that's because, like, one of the problems that the show, in season 2, by the way, decided, like, underpopulation was a bad thing. It decided, you know what, underpopulation isn't good. This is a problem that we're currently having. I highly doubt within 3 episodes of The Last of Us, they've mentioned that. You know, they probably haven't mentioned it. Actually trying to fit the whole family and abortion debate into a video about a TV show with zombies and gay characters.
The fleet is depopulating. And so the question becomes, what do you do about abortion? So President Roslyn, who is a lefty, she decides that she's going to outlaw abortion because if you want humanity to survive, then it turns out that individual autonomy over your body is significantly less important than actually repopulating humanity.
Ben Shapiro's like, oh yeah, I love that. I love that. They made abortion illegal. That's so good. That's so good. Libertarian, by the way. He's missing the point that the show is not about the survival of humanity, but the journey and growth of specific people in a postal... Yeah, exactly. Yes. He's saying that the point of the show is the survival of humanity, but it's not. The point of the show is the survival of the characters. The specific characters that we like. You know, the main characters. or any side characters that are introduced. That's what we want to see. We want to see them become, I don't know, better people over time. We want to see their growth. We want to see how their character changes and evolves to the situations around them. We want to see how they adapt to certain things, whether or not their environments, destroy their mental health. That's the kind of stuff we want to see. Ben Shapiro pours some milk before the cereal. Oh yeah, absolutely. He probably doesn't put milk on his cereal. He's the kind of guy to eat cereal with water.
Autonomy over your body is significantly less important than actually repopulating humanity.
Obviously, yeah, this is like in a situation where maybe there's like a few thousand people left. There is the fact that you would probably make abortion illegal in a situation where there's a few thousand people left. But like, that's in a situation where there's a few thousand people left and there's still a government body. Which is not the same as The Last of Us, so I don't know why he's bringing that into it. Focused on a colony of people. Exactly, yeah. If it was focused on a colony of people, like if the show was about a village or something, then it would make more sense.
So here's Rosalind announcing that she's outlawing abortion, right? Because again, the stakes are whether humanity survives. It is not whether two individuals fall in love in the middle of a farm, not threatened by anyone, which is the story of this.
It's a single episode of a show. It's a small part of the whole thing, right? It's like saying, no, that scene in that movie, that's not good. Because, that scene where there's, two people that, they like each other, it doesn't help because, humanity as a whole. It's like, yeah, but it's a short part of the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, the thing is, yeah, they didn't have to make an episode about it, right? They didn't have to. They wanted to. It's a TV show. They thought, you know what? This would be cool. Why don't we do it? So they did. You're not allowed to do that. Not allowed to do that. No, it doesn't aid humanity as a whole.
It is not whether two individuals fall in love in the middle of a farm, not threatened by anyone, which is the story of this particular episode.
Also, yeah, not threatened by anyone. What do you mean? What do you mean not threatened by anyone? Like one of the first scenes that he showed was one of the dudes shooting at other people. They are clearly being threatened.
Since assuming the presidency, I've made it my mission to maintain the rights and freedoms we so enjoyed prior to the attack. One of these rights has now come into direct conflict with the survival of the species. And I find myself forced to make a very difficult decision. The issue is stark. The fact is that if this civilization is to survive, we must repopulate this fleet. Therefore, I'm issuing an executive order. From this day forward, anyone seeking to interfere with the birth of a child,
whether it be the mother or a medical practitioner, shall be subject to criminal penalty.
Okay, so, this is like an actual issue. What do you do during an apocalypse? Do you actually try to preserve humanity or not? Two gay dudes falling in love and then dying of old age is not relevant to that particular conversation. I can say, well, that's not what they wanted to cover on the show. That's not what they were interested in covering on the show. The truth is, it's a much more compelling storyline. I mean, that's the entire plot line of A Quiet Place, right? You have an alien invasion. What do you do when you have a baby? Do you continue to have babies in view of the fact that there's a threat to the children, in view of the fact they're going to have to live difficult and rough lives and all the rest of it, right? But you can say, I see the argument. Okay, well, that's not what they wanted to take on in episode 3. So I have a question. What were they seeking to take on in episode 3?
They wanted to tell a compelling story. And they did. They did. People loved it. They wanted to make something that people would watch and go, oh my God, that was good. And they did. They did it. It was successful. You know what I'm saying? It was a story about a relationship, the type of relationship that we very, very seldomly see on the big screen. It's like, that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to tell a story about characters that we would later see from the perspective of the main characters as, you know, dead bodies. It's interesting. It is an interesting storyline. Just because it doesn't make sense in relation to the rest of the story doesn't mean it's not interesting. It's so strange. It's like, let me just...
The argument, okay, well, that's not what they wanted to take on in episode 3. So I have a question. What were they seeking to take on?
What were they seeking to take on? It's like, they were showing how other people are surviving in this particular, you know, this particular situation. It's just strange to say, like, this doesn't impact the plot. It doesn't matter. It's like, what were they, well, what were they seeking to take on? The survival of other people in this situation. You know, in an apocalyptic situation, they wanted to show that people can still fall in love and attempt to have a normal life. That's what they were showing. It just happened to be two people who were both men. If you think about it, like, Ben Shapiro is looking at it from the perspective that these are two gay men that fell in love. Right? And that's, you know, they only did it because they're gay. Whereas I think I would look at it, and a lot of people would look at it from the perspective of these are two characters that met each other and fell in love, and they just happen to be gay. It just happens to be a male character falling in love with another male character. If this was a male character and a female character falling in love, and they didn't have a child, it would serve the exact same purpose. Would Ben Shapiro find that so, like, offensive? Would he think, oh my god, no, that's bad because it doesn't aid the plot? Not really. Not really. He wouldn't even think about it. He'd go, oh, that was a little weird that they had a bit of a subplot there, but that's fine. Ben would love the episode they weren't gay. Exactly. That's exactly what I mean. So it's a bit strange that he's made a 13-minute long video talking about this, where if it was a straight relationship, he wouldn't make it. You know? And if he saw me saying that, he'd probably go, no, I would make that point because, you know, it's not about the fact that they're gay, but that's what he thinks. You know, he thinks like that. It's like, oh, well, they're gay. You know, what was the point in that? Was it just to be woke? It's like, no. Because if they did that with a straight couple, it would serve the exact same purpose. So, like, they just decided that the characters should be gay instead. Because being straight is seen as, you know, the norm. It's what you're expecting. And because of that, we as a society see gay relationships as a bit weird, which definitely shouldn't be how it is. He wouldn't complain about it if they weren't gay. That's what I'm saying. If the episode happened exactly the same way, and they didn't have a child, they didn't attempt to aid the survival of humanity in any particular way at all. All right, let's watch the end of this. There's only like 2 minutes left.
In episode 3, what was the major topic that they were seeking to take on? People falling in love during the apocalypse? What are the stakes? We don't know any of these characters, nor are we going to care about them beyond this particular episode. Which means that it's basically just a sidetrack. It's a throwaway episode. But it's so important because it has gay people, you see. It's so important.
Well,
and,
yeah,
you know,
it is.
The guy who created...
It is important because it's gay people, because it's one of the very, very, very few instances where there are openly gay relationships on a screen. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, you know, it is important. It is because it's representation. Again, he's only complaining because they're gay. If there was an episode like this, like, he's saying, like, oh, well, you know, a story about a relationship that doesn't go anywhere, well, we don't care about that. But clearly a lot of people do. you know? Clearly, a lot of people do. Like, I think that kind of story is very interesting. You know what I mean? It's an interesting storyline. In fact, he's so hilariously transparent, makes his videos really funny to watch. Yeah. That's why I watch them. Someone asked me, actually, on YouTube, in my comments, for someone who doesn't like Ben, why are you watching him? I'd hate my life if I watched the people I hated every day to try and make content. But you see, the thing is, the content, like, it's fun. It's interesting. You know what I mean? Someone replied, it's like watching a bad rom-com. You don't watch it because it's good. It's exactly how I feel about it.
But it's so important because it has gay people, you see. It's so important. And, you know, the guy who created the video game, of course, is a big lefty. In season 2, apparently, if it mirrors the video games, from what I've been told, it gets very trans and very lesbian and all the rest of it. And that's their prerogative. They're the creators of the show. But all of the talk about how this was like an excellent episode of TV that was wrapped into a broader show is not true. And pretending that it is ignoring kind of the dynamics of the show.
You mentioned gay people, trans people, abortion, the fact that gay couples... Yeah. He's mentioned, like, everything that he doesn't like. It's weird to me that... I'm just gonna, like, replay...
Lesbian and all the rest of it. And that's their prerogative. They're the creators of the show. But all of the talk about how this was like an excellent episode of TV that was wrapped into a broader show is not true.
Why? My big question for Ben Shapiro, immediately after he says...
It was like an excellent episode of TV that was wrapped into a broader show is not true.
My immediate question is, why not? Why was that not true? Because he hasn't explained it in the 12 minutes that we've watched of this video. Or, well, the 9 minutes, because we excluded the sponsor section. But he hasn't actually explained why it's not a good piece of media. You know what I'm saying? He's just said, there's gay people in this, they aren't straight, they can't reproduce, therefore, it's a bad episode. That's just to sum up, like, the majority of what he said. There's gay people in this, that makes it bad. The other point that he makes is, it doesn't tie in fully with the plot, that makes it bad. But the fact that the main characters show up at the end and interact with the bodies, even, makes it tie in. It ties in with the plot. That means it ties in. Because those characters exist now in the minds of the main characters, right? They have interacted. But, like, the thing is, if Ben Shapiro had a take, right, a genuine take that he believed in, that contradicted some right-wing beliefs, he'll never say it on his show. Because people will immediately say, oh no, you can't say that. That's not what I believe. So why do you believe that? You know? Because he claims to be a libertarian, which is not what he presents. Alex Jones made $800,000 in one day from selling brain pills and straws that filter out the gay chemicals in the water. Oh, that's funny. That's hilarious. Can you imagine making that much money from selling supplements and straws with filters in them? What was Ben's big gotcha moment?
How this was like an excellent episode of TV that was wrapped into a broader show is not true. And pretending that it is ignoring kind of the dynamics of the show. So there's...
Gotcha. It's a bad episode because there's gay people and it doesn't tie in with the entire plot. That makes it a bad episode, and anyone that claims that it is a good episode, they're ignoring the fact that the rest of the show exists. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Absolutely. For sure. We've got a minute left. Let's see if we can make it through a minute without just instantly stun locking ourselves again.
Here's my critique of The Last of Us Episode 3. I know, I'm not allowed to say that I didn't like it. You have to say you loved it. And you particularly loved the most, like, the most graphic parts of it. Those are the parts you love the most, right? I mean,
No, you don't have to say that. If you give any actual genuine critique on the episode, then yeah, you can say, I didn't like this particular part. I didn't like the fact that this guy did this thing. For example, I haven't even watched the episode, but that scene where he's standing in the middle of the road shooting at the other guys, who are all taking cover, I don't like the fact that he's standing in the middle of the road. You know? That's a critique. I'm saying I don't like the fact that this character is doing this. Why have you made this character do this? You know, that's more of a critique than saying gay people bad. You have to say you liked it or the liberals are going to get you. Yeah, he's doing that. Yeah, exactly. He is doing that. It's one of his classics. You have to say you like a certain thing or else the liberals are going to get you.
like the most graphic parts of it.
He's talking about the sex scenes, by the way. You have to particularly say you really, really like the sex. You don't. You can, if you want, say that you don't like seeing sex scenes in media. The fact that gay people have sex doesn't offend me, but the fact that you make me watch that does. Sex scenes are solely to make people watching with their parents uncomfortable? Yeah. Personally, I don't like sex scenes in media at all. I think it's weird. I don't want to see that. I mean, maybe show a couple of seconds of the beginning of the sex scene and then cut it off. Go to something else. Move on to the next scene. Because I personally, it makes me uncomfortable to a certain extent seeing a sex scene in a movie at all, whether it be a straight couple or a gay couple. I think to me, it's a bit weird. Ideally, they would just have it implied exactly, yeah. So I think it's a bit weird if they show that kind of stuff anyway. I think it's kind of strange. But the thing is, by specifically saying I don't like the gay sex scenes, you have to say why. And if you say you don't like the gay sex scenes just because they're gay, it's a little bit weird. A little bit weird. You can say, like, I don't like seeing sex scenes. Boom. There you go. And Ben Shapiro is someone who thinks that porn is inherently evil. So, as someone who thinks that porn is bad, he should immediately think that sex scenes are bad. Right? Same thing. Same idea. So he should just instantly critique anything that has a sex scene in it because he doesn't like pornography. He doesn't like sexual content. All right. If you watch movies for the sex scenes, you're weird. And the only reason why you should be absolutely disgusted by a gay sex scene is if you watch movies for the sex scenes. There you go. That's what I'm trying to say. If you watch movies for entertainment and there happens to be a gay sex scene in it, you should not feel like incredibly uncomfortable. You should not feel disgusted by that. You might go, oh, that's a bit weird putting a sex scene in there. Because you don't like sex scenes. But Ben's saying you specifically have to say that you really liked the sex scenes is not necessarily true. You can say you don't like the sex scenes in the episode because you don't like sex scenes. But it is a bit weird to suggest that you absolutely have to say you loved that.
Because if you don't say that, it means you're a homophobe or something. All I'm saying is that nobody actually paid to see the movie Bros. And when you go to see The Last of Us, what you generally want to see is a zombie apocalypse TV show, not two gay dudes dating while listening to Linda Ronstadt and then dying of old age after growing strawberries.
Okay. That's probably the most transparent thing he has said so far. That's probably the most transparent thing he has mentioned so far. People pay to see movies and TV shows. What they're not paying for is to see gay people. But him saying that he's not paying to go see gay people is like me saying I'm not going to see straight people on my screen. It's weird. It's a bit weird to say that. You know what I mean? He's basically just said that he doesn't like it because there's gay people in it. He didn't watch the show to see gay people. That's what he said. Which is like me saying, "Oh, I didn't watch that show to see straight couples." But yeah, he's basically said, "Gay people on my screen, not cool." If you're going to see a show, you should be open to the idea that there will be gay people on the screen. In fact, from now on, expect there to be gay people in the shows you are watching. You don't have to be like disappointed if there's not, but expect there to be, the same way you would expect there to be a straight relationship in the show you're watching.
I think that, and frankly, I think everybody who's like, wow, I was super into this. Yeah, I think some of you are lying. I think some of you are in it. Some of you were kind of lying.
Okay, so that's it. That's the end. So yeah, basically Ben Shapiro said, everyone that said they liked this show, you're lying because you don't actually like gay people, do you? You're actually lying. You don't really like gay people that much, do you? But basically, yeah. Like I said, if you're going to watch a show, expect there to be a gay couple in it, the same way you would expect there to be a straight couple in it, and don't be surprised if gay people show up, the same way you wouldn't be surprised if straight people show up. You know what I mean? Unless you're surprised in a good way, like I was when I heard about the fact that people loved this episode. The first thing I heard was, oh yeah, there's gay people in this episode. And I was immediately expecting people to start like tweeting about how they don't like it because they're forcing the wokeness onto us. You know what I mean? But people are loving it.